Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Joe and I have been going to Stamford Bridge for over 30 years. For the past 3 years, we've been exchanging voice notes on everything from the highs in Porto to the lows of Potter. Each week, this podcast will take you inside our unfiltered thoughts on all things Chelsea, sharing our view from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes. Well, welcome to a live edition, if you will, of the 1905 podcast. Joe, how are you?
I'm very well, mate. I'm reeling from yesterday still. I'm still not over that, I'll be honest with you. But we've got to fight another 3 cup finals, haven't we?
Yes, we do. I think it's fair to say that we planned to do this one as a live conversation because we were kind of planning it to be quite a celebratory one, both feeling pretty confident ahead of the Newcastle game, thinking it could be really nicely set up for Friday night against Man United. And yeah, let's get together in person and have a good old chat about how brilliant this little run's going. But it's a little bit flat, and we will be breaking down the reasons why in today's pod. So before we talk about the game and give our views of what happened up in Newcastle, let's hand over to a man who was there at the game, friend of the show and journalist / Chelsea fan, Owen Phillips, who saw it live in St James's Park. Over to you, Owen.
Right, 15 minutes after kick-off, there's a few of the players that didn't get on, doing their warm-ups now. Tosin, Dewsbury Hall, Tariq George. Is that Nicholas Jackson? I can't tell. That might well be Nicholas Jackson. No, maybe not. No, maybe not. Wouldn't surprise me. He probably deserves to have a good bloody running now for that idiocy, which has really cost us. It's also going to cost him time at the end of the season, because he ain't going to get on in the Premier League now, is he? So that's pretty piss poor from that point of view. Anyway, reflection on that. I thought we were a really good second half, if I'm honest. I just really thought we went for it. Casado was just immaculate, wasn't he? What a player he is. And you're not saying anything revelatory here. Same with Palmer. Like Palmer, when he gets, just see him up close and personal, see him from a different angle, and that, yeah, when you've got such a great view as I've had, the way he strokes the ball, the way the pass, the pace he plays it, everything about him is quality, and he got further forward, so did Enzo. Casado and Lavia just bossed the midfield with dominated possession. They got increasingly frustrated. You could see Enzo. Yeah, it was great to be here and see on the sidelines how much it meant to everyone. Lavia going into challenges, Casado steaming around. I mean, he's got to be careful, but he's quite cute and quite smart how he does it and what he does. There's Eddie Howe being interviewed pitch side now with Peter Crouch. But yeah, that just very impressive really to come here and do that, having gone 1-0 down, man sent off. We looked like we got a bit rattled end of first half, but it was born of frustration, but also it's a care. There's an element of care, and when I was one of the many who criticised, I think they all were saying their lack of leader and lack of composure. Well, Lavia's shown a little bit of it. I think he showed he's got plenty about him, character. You know, Palmer, when the second goal went in, 89th minute, 90th minute, he's back getting the ball, trying to G people up. He was massively pissed off when we conceded. He was arguing with the referee. I don't want to see arguing with the referee particularly, but I want to see people who care and are spiky and give a shit. Do you know what I mean? It's just absolutely what you want to see from your team. And Enzo's got that about him, and he and Cucurella could start a fight in a phone box. There's plenty of them that have got that shape, and you see this team taking shape. One thing I'd say tactically, when Casado moved in, despite having 10 men, he's good at right back and he does a job and he comes in and he compliments others, but that belief, that sort of us going for it. We've got better players than lots of teams. Play Casado in midfield. Let them worry about that. He is so good. It is just scary. He's, dare I say it, he's like even better than Kante potentially. I really think so. And you know, Makelele, he's right up there in that same discussion. You see in the way he anticipates the way he gets in. You see before the challenge, which you see on the telly, you see him reading it and working it out, and his brain fizzing. He's just wonderful. Enzo Maresca as well, like just he was arguing and doing and remonstrating and throwing his arms around. I mean, he's bound to come out and say something bland in the presser in a minute, but at least he shows that passion on the sidelines as well, which I want to see. He inspires players. I think a bit of adversity never does anyone any harm, and I think this might galvanise us for the rest of the season. This might just be the thing that gets us qualification. We can beat bloody United. If we play like that, we beat United. There's no doubt about it. And if we go into the last game at Forest, you never know, that might be enough anyway. Interesting. Newcastle now, I think City are going to do it, but yeah, if Forest can drop points maybe, then we might be there. But I think there's a good chance we'll have to win both, at least not lose to Forest. But yeah, Villa have got a chance now. Maybe we've given them a sniff, so it's going to get tight. It's going to go down to the last game realistically, I suppose. But yeah, got to be pleased with the response. Well, we could have capitulated there. Chelsea last season would have lost that. Chelsea at the start of the season would have lost that. Chelsea, think of the Brighton display. That was a tame, poxy display. But this felt different. One or two players make all the difference, and having had that terrible run, I think they realised they just don't want to go through it again. Anyway. Yeah, onwards and upwards. Let's beat United next week. Give ourselves a chance. Winning Europe. That season's been a good one.
Really good to hear from Owen, and actually I think a really sensible breakdown of how the game went. And you said it, Joe, before we came on air, that it was very much a game of two halves. And I know that you were busy scribbling down notes during the game on each half. So if I hand over to you, do you want to talk through kind of some of the thoughts and insights that you had watching it?
Yes, absolutely. I think the reason I did this was I nagged you into doing this kind of podcast, the live tonight. I did think we were going to get a result there, and I thought, so we're going to Man United at the weekend, on Friday, I should say, and I think we both thought we were going to do it. So yeah, I thought I'd better do some prep work for this, only because I didn't want to miss anything out. So I'm going to get a few bullet points here, and you can kind of, I'll go through them and you can tap off them at the end, and then we'll go through the second half, because it really was like two different games. So the first point simply is we gave Newcastle far too much respect. Straight off the bat, it was like we were playing like we were a Division 1 team. That's how I felt. I thought it was surprising how slow we started considering our recent form. We've been very, very good, not just winning, but playing well too. I think as good as Caicedo is at right back, he doesn't make natural fullback recovery runs. So not your standard up and down. It's when the ball goes behind him. If you watch the game again, his positioning is atrocious. It is awful. And who's the guy? Tonyali just walked in behind him and he scored. Now, this isn't a knock on Caicedo. He is, as you'll hear in the second half of this Newcastle report, unbelievable. And his first half was still really, really good. It's just that nagging feeling. If Reece James was playing fullback, or Gusto even, you would have seen them cover that run off, and he didn't even get back. He's nowhere near it. Predictable possession, really slow. Everything played in front of Newcastle's back four and their midfield 4 or 5. When they got out of possession, they just stood up against us and put a back four, a flat midfield four, and then 2 up front, and they just said, "Go on, break us down." And we just went out to the wingers, came back to nobody, and we kept recycling possession back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Not one winger. And I actually started to watch this, and the wingers and the fullbacks too never took on the opposing Newcastle fullback. Not once. They went up to the line and passed back, and it was so boring and predictable. To me, that's a Maresca formation problem at times. I feel as though we're so consumed with we must keep the ball, that it was like no one has that part of the brain where they go, I'm just going to do something magic. I'm just going to try something different. We've been doing this for 30 minutes. It's not happening. I want to take somebody on. And do you know what? If I get to the byline and I cross it behind the goal, at least I've given the fullback something to think about. It was just really, really poor, I thought. What's here? And then obviously, clearly, brain dead Jackson. Absolutely brain dead. I mean, if you're going to chin someone, you've at least got to be looking at the ball before you do it. He looks at Botman. He just walks over, thrashes him. I mean, it's an awful elbow. To be quite honest with you, whether he meant it or not is irrelevant. It's a straight red card all day long. That was my position centre half. If somebody had done that against me, you're going down all day long and you're milking that to the cows come home. It was so stupid. I mean, our WhatsApp group went crazy. as you know, immediately after it happened, it was like straight red, straight red, straight. Nobody even thought, oh, we might get away with this. It was obviously going to be a red card with VAR. You know, you get away with nothing these days. I just find it incredibly stupid, and the fact that he's now missing our remaining 2 league games, and he is a dynamic player for us. Whether you like him or you don't, he's a very good player for us. He's going to be a big miss, and that's that. You know, dare I say it, he could be the difference between qualifying and not qualifying, because Neto, as we know, is not a clear number 9, and nor is Tyreek George, although I think George will do a fairly decent job if he plays there. So they're my first. That was my first half kind of summary, and you can kind of tap off of that if you want to, mate.
Yeah, no, really, really good summary. I think the too much respect thing that you said at the start there is something that I feel I've seen from us in virtually all of the big away games this year. Because even when we went to Anfield earlier in the season, actually played really well. I was like, oh, we don't believe this. Even at 2-1, we were 2-1 down, and you thought, there's something missing. And we did the same when we played, obviously Arsenal, we didn't even turn up, let's be fair. But the same at Man United when we went to Old Trafford, and
Yes.
you're like,
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
so by far the better team. You know, we were on great form. It's like, we don't believe we can win here. And I think the hope was having beaten Liverpool last week and finally kind of shown that we can beat a big 6 club, or at least one of the top 4. We beat Spurs every time. That's separate. You kind of thought, oh, maybe that will we'll see a different side of us. And coming out like that, and like we did, it was so disappointing. The other thing as well is that going into the game, you kind of thought, oh, actually, it might serve us quite well, the fact that Newcastle will probably come onto us, and we're pretty lively on the break, as we know. We're so dangerous when teams do have a bit more of the ball, like we did against Liverpool. We look so good on the break every time. The worst thing that could have happened is concede after 2 minutes, because then it meant that obviously you'll come on to the second half, but even during the first half, Newcastle could then go, right, we can sit a bit deeper now. We've got the goal, and it completely destroyed us after 2 minutes. So, yeah, that was huge for us. And then on the other part I pick up is Caicedo as well. I should talk about Jackson, but Caicedo, again, love him. Actually, I like him in that position when we've got the ball, because you're not then seeing Gusto out of position as a midfielder, for example. And Reece can do it, but you're literally, when you've got the ball, it's like, brilliant, we've got an extra midfielder on the pitch, great. But when you're right, when we're off the ball, it is a problem. And the other game, I don't know if you remember this, where he played there and we didn't win, was home to Bournemouth. And he got in the wrong position at right back and gave away the penalty, which turned the game around. So we're 1-0 up, playing brilliantly, and it's almost exactly the same sort of thing. He was in the wrong position as a right back, did it unnecessarily foul, and it turned the game around. So, yeah, you're always going to have that thing as a player who's playing so out of position that it's going to be an issue. Let's talk about Jackson, because obviously we'll talk about the second half in a second, which he wasn't part of. I think it's you see it everywhere. It's really pissed off a lot of Chelsea fans, and you're immediately there's crazy reactions online. You should never play for the club again, etc. All this kind of slightly extreme examples. I think what it's done for me is 2 things. I've been a little bit on the fence for a while about whether we should, in bringing in another striker, should we be bringing in someone to compete with Jackson and almost be exactly the same level as him, or do we need to try and get someone who is a level above him? And I think a moment like that has slightly shifted my perspective and towards maybe we should, if an Osimhen's available, go and get him. Because I don't know how much I trust him. And not just in moments like that, but I don't know in big games whether I feel like he's going to get the goals we need him to. And therefore, whether bringing in someone who we don't want to upset Jackson with and stuff is the right level. And then here's the other perspective, which is going to maybe be a bit controversial. You and I have talked about quite a few times in this pod about the fact that there's a lot of players in the squad that we really like now. There's loads of guys in the squad, talk about Caicedo, talk about Cucurella, talk about, you can go through the group. There's loads of players we like. Talk about, actually, really, Enzo's won us over. Palmer is one of my favourite Chelsea players probably ever at the moment. I love him that much. I don't know if I really like Jackson. In terms of, I don't think he's a player that I have particularly warmed to in terms of his attitude. Obviously, when he's scoring goals and stuff, great. but there's just something about his character that I don't know if I would particularly have warmed to. I feel like he thinks he's a bit better than he is. You said it before about something like Jadon Sancho coming off when he's brought off as a sub and put his arm around Turret George saying, "You go and score the winner." As we know, every time you bring Jackson off, he sulks. You
Mm.
know, he storms off the pitch, doesn't want to shake anyone's hand and stuff. And not that this is a reason why you wouldn't, keep him and stuff, but it's just it just came to my mind that I don't have a huge sort of warmth around him where I'd be like, no, I don't. He's my man. I want him to be the leading light of the Chelsea for the next 10 years. So yeah, what do you think?
Well, weirdly, I completely agree with the Jackson thing. Now, I don't dislike Jackson. However, I'm trying to picture myself back to when Drogba was coming through, and we never, you and I don't compare Drogba to Jackson at this stage. We don't. We've mentioned that he has similar traits, and he took a while to get going, etc. Drogba. My worry is that we do get rid of him, or we don't play him as much, and in a year's time he leaves or something, and then he goes to somewhere. Who knows? Pick a team. He goes somewhere and scores 28 goals or something in the league, and we go, oh, we've done it again. I think we have to keep him around. I think we have to keep him around. He's someone I think we may regret selling if we sell him next season. I get your point, and I take your point about the warmth, because Jadon Sancho isn't even our player, and whether we keep him or not is not for us to decide. But like you say, he has an attitude that you kind of go, oh, I like what you're doing. You're giving those young players your time, because at the end of the day, they were young once as well. They needed someone to come and give them an arm around the shoulder. And I think Jude Bellingham gets a lot of stick for Real Madrid. I mean, he is quite an aggro player, but what he does do, he does give appreciation to young players that come through. He did that at Dortmund, and he's now doing it at Real Madrid. And I think Jackson has to realise a little bit that it's not all about you. The one that really pissed me off was I think it was last season when the whole penalty debacle happened. It might have been Everton at home. We were winning 4-0 or something, 3-0, I don't know, I forget the score now. And there was a penalty decision, and that all that hoo-ha, and we may have, we've mentioned this ourselves about who should take it. Now, Palmer's a penalty taker, and they're trying to actively take the ball out of his hands for them to take it, because we all know now the players are incentivized. Yeah, they're incentivized by their bonuses. They know if they score 10 goals or 12 goals or 15 goals, they might get another £250,000 in their pocket. But that's not football, and that's not how it should be played. And that whole debacle at the time had me going, I don't want to see this in my team. I'm sick and tired of this crap. Let's stop that. And that's more of a point for me where I go, I don't want to see that in my team anymore. I'm sick and tired of it. That's more of a reason for me to not play him, because I can't stand that side of football. With him, I get the warmth, but I still think we have to give him time to rectify. He's got somewhere to go now. He owes Chelsea something. That would be my other sort of way of looking at it. He's not going to play for the rest of the season. We know it could cost us, but I think we need to give him, fingers crossed we can get into the Champions League. Let's give him another season and see how he can develop. But we definitely need, as we're going to come on to a bit later on, we definitely need to improve the striker situation. Because if you look at the midfield, as a central midfield positions as they stand now, as of next season, you're going to have Enzo in there, a bit higher, I know, Caicedo, Lavia, Santos, Asugu. All these players are vying for maybe 2 positions, 3 if you class Enzo as a slightly higher for. So why can't we have more? We've got Nkunku and we've got Jackson. Nkunku is not a number 9. The sporting director should have known that, and Maresca should have known he wasn't a number 9 before the season kicked off. And even if we'd gone and got a player like, dare we say, a Marcus Rashford on loan or something, I'm not saying we should have done, but there were options out there in January. Villa have strengthened there, and who just said the Rashford signing could end up being pivotal? Who's to say he doesn't score a couple of goals against Tottenham and Man United in the next couple of games and pushes them over the line? But yeah, I think Jackson deserves a bit. I think the way people said he shouldn't play for the club anymore was a bit too much, in my opinion. I think that's overdoing it a bit. But he's young. He has made a mistake. It is a stupid mistake in the context of the game. But we've all made mistakes. You can't just kill someone for one moment of madness.
Well, we'll talk about the the rest of the season, kind of what we did in January didn't do in January. I think if we don't get the Champions League, then what we did in January in terms of transfer business compared to what Villa did could be the defining factor of the season. But we'll come on to that later. Interesting side note for Chelsea fans of a certain generation. The one moment I can compare it to, and it's nowhere near the extremeness of the situation, but similar because you mentioned him earlier. Do you remember when Drogba got sent off in the 2008 Champions League final?
Yeah.
And after that, there was very clear. And this is before kind of crazy social media, but I remember a lot of people saying Drogba should never play for the club again because it was like he would have taken the fifth penalty instead of John Terry. He's cost us, etc. And of course, 4 years later, Drogba is the hero in Munich in terms of scoring the goal and the decisive penalty. So, yeah, I'm with you on Jackson 100% in terms of giving him more time, and you wouldn't want to lose him. It's just who do you bring in to compete with him, and is it a Liam Delap, or do you go, no, actually we need to get someone a bit bigger, bigger name, but one for another day. Let's talk about the second half, Joe, which was more positive. What did you have, Dan?
So again, just some bullet points here. Caicedo absolutely bossed midfield. I don't know if you saw this in the second half, but he was dribbling towards the Newcastle penalty area. Sort of, it was maybe somewhere between the halfway line and the half and between the 18-yard box, and he pushes. I forget who it was now. He just launches the Newcastle midfield player alongside him, like get off. I swats him like a fly. Continues to dribble forward, makes his pass. It was highly entertaining and very funny. But putting him in midfield alongside Lavia as a solid two, having Reece James as the right fullback, or if it's not going to be James but somebody else, the balance was perfect. I thought it was Reece's best half of football this season, particularly because of the context of the game. It was a competitive match, and we were away in a high hostile atmosphere. And I just thought that was the Reece of old. And we need to have that balance back. I say that I'm all for it, like you said earlier on, Chris. In certain games, in possession, he's great, Caicedo at right back, but you cannot beat a natural fullback, and Reece is just outstanding there. It was interesting to see that Enzo I noticed, was our furthest player forward. I thought it would be Palmer. That the commentator said it was Palmer. It wasn't Palmer at all. He was much deeper. Palmer picked the ball up at one point in the right back position, which I thought, what the bloody hell are you picking the ball up there for? But it was Enzo that was like kind of the focal point, which is interesting. They trust him to do that. And I actually thought, all right, it wasn't his best game of football, Enzo, yesterday, but it was nice that I didn't mind the fact that he was kicking a few and he was roughing a few up and he was getting stuck in. I want to see that. And I know there were some people saying, oh, he's erring the side of a yellow card because he'd been booked in the first half, and will he get a red card? But I think he needed that to wind himself up. And I think it got some of the others going too. Palmer was clearly agitated all game long with the time wasting. I mean, they were doing it in the first half, Newcastle. And he kept saying to the referee, come on, even from throw-ins. I think I can count it at one point. It was a minute and a half for them to take a throw-in. They kept passing the ball back to somebody else. It was unbelievably bad. And this is why Rescott got a little bit eggy in the press conference as well, because the time wasting was just horrendous. So yeah, it was just interesting to see that Enzo was our furthest player forward. What have I got here? I was pleased that we didn't actually buckle. I thought it was nice that we kept that possession. That the changes he made to me felt like this is how we should have started the game. Now I know he's going to say Reece couldn't do 90 minutes, or there's going to be some excuse. Lavia couldn't do 90 minutes. I don't know, but I just felt like if we'd started the game with Reece at right back, he makes that tackle on Tonyali or he certainly gets back and makes a block on Tonyali, and we probably don't concede the goal in the opening minute. It was a much better balanced team. It was a real fun watch. I know it was difficult because we were down to 10 men, but I hate saying I'm proud when you lose a game. It feels a little bit, who cares? You've lost. But that team didn't go under. I think Chelsea team last year and maybe the start of this season, going down to 10 men, a young side would have buckled 100%. And it was nice to see that we stood stoutly against them. So that was good. I've just wrote down here Enzo's passion, which I loved. I've already covered that. His corners are atrocious, by the way. Oh, my word. His corners are, I just want to headbutt the wall every time we get a corner. It's like, why we're sending Levi Colwell up and everybody else, and it's just like, he hits the first man. And sometimes he doesn't even hit the first man, he hits the first player before the post, which is just embarrassing. That's doing my head in. And just we dominated possession. We had, did we have, I'm sure it came up in the graphic at one point, we had 80 something percent possession in the second half with 10 men, which I thought was I was actually quite pleased with that. I was like, I know possession doesn't win games. I get it. But there was, like I say, a hostile atmosphere. They were cheering for everything. The moment Gordon spent so much time on the floor, it was just embarrassing. And to be honest with you, I think Caicedo tackled him maybe 8 or 10 times yesterday. And I think only one of them was a proper foul. And to be fair to the referee, he didn't buy the crap. He kept going and kept playing on, which was good. But the crowd went up for everything. And Owen, I think, mentions this in his voice note potentially about the crowd cheering for anything, even if it's not a foul. And I thought we just handled the pressure very, very well. We still lost the game 2-0. I'm very aware that, it gets you no points. But I think the team can at least look at that second half performance and go into Man United and just say, we're okay. Not what we wanted, get it, 100%. But let's not be too down about this and concentrate on the next 2 games. I think if we'd gone and got an absolute shellacking, they were hitting the bar and Sanchez making saves left, right and centre and we couldn't get the ball back, I think it would have felt pretty poor against United. But actually, in the grand scheme of things, a deflected goal near the end and a cross from Barnes, was it that put it in for Tonali? But how, in the first minute and a half, with those 2 things don't go against you on the day, I think we probably win. Reece should have scored. Reece should have scored before the goal goes in the second goal. And in my opinion, that's a straightforward header. But he didn't take it, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it was. I think at half time, great summary, Joe. I think at half time, you were sort of fearing the worst. I mean, part of us, this could be a little bit like an Arsenal last season away from home, couldn't it? Where this could get really ugly really quickly. And the second we came out, you're like, oh no, okay, we've got a bit about us. I mean, the character you mentioned there, I think the quality that we showed that we have almost counters the point really nicely of what you said at the start around the fact that we showed them too much respect really in the first half, because you look at it, you go, man for man. I was thinking this before the game. I was like, as much as it's a really tough game, how many of those Newcastle players would I take in the Chelsea team? Obviously, Isak straight in, but outside of that, you may be thinking maybe 2 or 3 that I think I'd put in our first 11. And I might be stretching to get there. So you kind of look at it and go, yeah, we really showed a quality, and there were 2 chances that really weren't there. There was the Cucurella shot, which was actually a great hit, and a good save, and then that Reece header, which was when he missed that, you feared the worst, didn't you? And that was gutting. What did you think about the penalty check, the non-penalty check that's been going around on social? I was watching it with a Spurs fan, Carl, who you know well, and he was watching. He was like, "That's a penalty." He doesn't have any love for Chelsea. He was like, "No, you've been robbed a penalty there. That's a joke." And you watch the stills today, and they're the ones that are very rarely given. Of course, for those who don't know, it was a corner came in. I think it was Guimaraes, wasn't it? Had 2 arms around Enzo, literally around his waist. He's going forward for the corner. And it's just one of those. It's not even looked at. It didn't seem to have even been checked.
Well, you know why, don't you? It's because they've been going at each other the whole of the second half. I mean, the actual funny thing was, I looked at the odds before the game. Enzo to be booked, and I think I can never say his name. Guimaraes to score was something like 12-1 or something. It was so. I wish I'd backed it, but they were going at each other so much. The Argentina-Brazil thing, you could just see they were just literally hammer and tongs the whole game. There was so much verbal between them that it was like the referees and the linesmen and VR just go, oh, they're both at it. It's that sort of typical old-fashioned throw it away now. There's nothing there. But unfortunately, VR they just don't look at that stuff, do they? They just don't do it unless it's a corner that comes in and there's what I would class as a one-on-one. Because if you look at the still clip, there's about 4 players all in there together, like all sort of jostling for the ball. If it had been like, I think Harry Maguire for England once gets literally held like this with 2 arms wrapped around him, and you go, it's a penalty. It's a penalty. It has to be a penalty. It wasn't that. It was too many bodies in the way, and I think VR just went, nope, not having any of it. And I think Had it been Newcastle maybe in 10th position, I think we might have got it. I think there was too much on the line, and I think if he gives that later on in the game, if something goes off in that Newcastle box, he's got to give another one to them. So yeah, I'm sort of, I get the point that it probably was a penalty. If you look at it like the stills, it looks a penalty all day long, but I think there's just too many bodies in the way.
Yeah, never get given. And credit Maresca for the changes at halftime. I think the only change that I guess wasn't made that when the subs were being made, I just felt, I guess, disappointed about, if anything, was, and it shows actually, we've talked about a bit about just how his stock has risen really, is that the one man I wanted to come on the pitch was Tyreek George. And when we needed a goal and it obviously brought on, Jadon Sancho, for example, I was thinking, yeah, fair enough, but I want Tyreek on there. And it's easy to say because of the Fulham goal, but I feel like he's shown those instincts around being around goal, there for a tap in there. And I just felt not bringing him on, to me, was a shame and a mistake, really, I thought. Easy to say in hindsight, I know, but
It's a flash strike, isn't it? Like the goal against Fulham, it came from nowhere. It was like bang, because he's got that youth. He's not worried about anything yet. He hasn't got that pressure. He doesn't feel it. It's all new to him. You would have felt as if something would come into him, he would have just whacked it. And that's what sometimes the experienced players, or I'm saying experienced players, are all young, but you get my point. The ones that are playing more regularly, they've got that little bit of pressure on them. I think George is coming in with a free swing, and that goal against Fulham came from nowhere, didn't it? And I know what you're saying.
yeah.
Just give him a go, because the recency bias is he's just done it against Fulham. So he may well have just gone, whack, I'll do it. I tried it last week, I'll try it again, sort of thing. So, yeah, a bit disappointing he didn't come on, I must admit. But I must say, Maresca's tactical tweaks, I said on the group, didn't I, this is where he's going to earn his money. Because if he'd have come out and basically played exactly the same, I'd have been sitting on here tonight going, that was bullshit. He needed to do an awful lot more.
Yeah.
But to be fair to him, I can't question it. I thought the first half was atrocious. It really was. I mean, that does come into question. But the second half, he did change things. I think he had the right players on the field in the right positions. I think we played with real confidence. We played with real purpose. We didn't let them bully us. We didn't let them, which was good to see, actually. I've mentioned Enzo, and there was one or two others as well. Palmer, Levi Colwood was given plenty, but doing it in the right way. I've said Cole early in the season does this thing where he bitches and moans about the wrong stuff, and yesterday he did it perfectly. Like the decisions you can moan about, he did moan about. And Wayne Rooney did an interview last week where he sort of talks about this, getting in the ref's ear, but doing it in the correct way. You can't appeal for every little thing. It's the bigger decisions, get around him then, make sure he knows about it, make sut that he's seen that's seen it. And I think that's where Colwood was quite good yesterday. He was letting everybody know. But it was good to see us battle, good to see us put up a good fight against them. Sadly, didn't get the result, I know, but it was good to see that we showed heart, because, like you said there, Chris, great example. The 5-0 against Arsenal last season away, that could have had that all day long written all over it. So, yeah, pleased that we sort of came out of it with a bit of respect and not too bad in the goal difference either.
Yeah, it was a real shame, actually, just on that point, that they did get that second goal, because number one, they didn't deserve it. It really flattered them, but the goal difference for them is so tight that even that second goal with the 2-goal swing, I mean, it's unlikely to, but it would have been really nice to have kept it really, really close. But yeah, right. I think that's Newcastle done. After the break, we'll talk about 3 cup finals that are left to go this season, and how it might play out. Hey, it's Chris here with a really quick message. Check us out on Instagram at 1905 Podcast. You'll find video clips, photos, and much more about everything we discuss on the show. Plus, it's a great way to get in touch to tell us your thoughts, share your feedback, or just say hi. Follow us on Instagram at 1905 Podcast. And now, back to the show. Okay, Joe, we have 3 games left of the season, 2 league games, which we'll focus on right now. I have become almost, I would say, obsessed with looking at the league table. I've spent far too much time looking at how close it is, looking at... I've memorized over recent weeks everyone's fixtures. And it's kind of, I've become a bit obsessed by just how close it is. And it is ridiculous. But where we're at now is I think we can safely assume that Arsenal, Newcastle, and Man City will probably be fine. They will be the top 4 in whatever order they decide on. It's going to be between Chelsea, Villa, and Forest at this point. Villa, for those who don't know, on the same points as Chelsea, but a much, much worse goal difference. And their last 2 games are against the clown clubs stroke Champions League rivals in the Europa League, Man United and Spurs. So they will play Spurs on the same night we play Man United. Very, very likely that Spurs will put out a reserve team, and either way, Villa will beat them comfortably, which will mean they'll have a playoff in the last game against Man United. And we will play Man United and then obviously play at Forest. And before we play Forest, Forest go to West Ham, who obviously won at Man United. And I don't think that'll be an easy game. But before we go through kind of all of what we think will play out, I'm going to ask you a fairly leading negative question here, and I'd like to get your perspective. How much of a failure would it be if Chelsea fail to get the Champions League, finish 6th, but still win the Conference League? How would you feel about the season?
Okay, well, I'll just briefly say, almost every Chelsea fan that I spoke to before the season, to a man, said we won't finish higher than 6th. That was the general consensus. We did a little sort of thing on here, didn't we, at the start of the season? So we asked a few people, and the consensus was, oh, we won't finish 6th, 7th, maybe 5th was kind of muted. People that I know also the same thing. So I think the fans have their level expectation went up slightly at the start of the season, and now we're expecting to finish in the top 4 or 5. So there is that. What do I think? Yeah, I think it's a failure. Based on the season, how it's gone, the teams around us, I think it's been a poor Premier League. I'm taking nothing away from Liverpool, by the way. I know I'm not the biggest Liverpool fan, as you can possibly tell, but I still think you've got to win it, and they've done that. But I think it's been a pretty poor group of teams around Chelsea, Villa, Forest, Newcastle, even City have been way off it. We're not that far behind Arsenal, quite frankly. We've been terrible. So I think it is a failure based on the teams around us, and that run between Boxing Day and whenever it was just horrendous. But yeah, I think we should look upon it as we didn't quite do it this year when other teams around us faltered as well.
Yeah, I'm completely with you actually, and because we were both fairly confident at the start of the season. I think we both had said top 4. I mean, I even thought we could be 3rd. So obviously we were pleasantly surprised about how the first half of the season went, but not shocked, because I think we felt we did have a good squad. I think what's really fascinating and is kind of the fun part of this in many ways is that the season is on a knife edge. We've talked about it a few times, but it really could go either way, and you feel it with the fan base, because before the Newcastle game, you just sense everyone's so upbeat. Everyone's like, we've won a few games in a row. It's brilliant. We're going to get Champions League and win the Conference League. It's amazingly high. And it was almost predictable. As soon as we lost at Newcastle, it feels incredibly low again. And it feels like it's that tight, the margin of how this season will be judged, where if we can go and get 5th and win the Conference League, I think there'll be general great job, Maresca. Yeah, there's been some mistakes. It wasn't great, but give him his time, and actually there's a lot of it to be positive about going into the World Club Cup. If we don't get 5th, and then we play, we end up finishing 6th, and which could easily happen, a win and a draw, you're 6th, and then we play a pretty decent Real Betis side who are on very good form, and lose that. You don't. I mean, I'd be sort of like putting the question out there: does Maresca have to go? Which is crazy, because that's how much of a knife edge it is. 3 games. It's 3 games.
Well, okay, what I'll say to the first point is, if Chelsea do get to the Champions League, I think there's going to be a huge buzz around us next season. Not from the press, not from the media. That may well be the case. But I think amongst the group, those players such as Enzo and Palmer and Colwell, we've mentioned a few before, I think their tails will be lifted because of it. I do believe that. I think that is I think confidence, within football clubs is massive. We've seen, when we've on these great runs, and like we say at the start of the season, we kept going and going and going, and then that defeat at Boxing Day, and we couldn't buy a win for love nor money. And I think it will give us a huge lift. The Club World Cup as well. If we were to have a good tournament in the Club World Cup, whether we win it or not, I don't know. I don't know how good the standard's going to be, how fit we're going to be, what sort of squad we're going to take. But I do think that we will have a real sense of we can do much better next season in the Premier League if we get there. If we finish 6th, and like you say, maybe don't win the Europa League, we're going to get thrown the same thing as Arsenal have at the moment, can't win a trophy and all this sort of nonsense. So I think that will have a real adverse effect on us. And I actually, I've heard a lot of podcasts and people say that if you back Maresca, you're basically drinking the Kool-Aid and you're an idiot and you love modern football when you're, all this nonsense. I'm like, no, that's not the case at all. But I do think that Chelsea need to keep a stable manager. And I think the end of this season, whether he's got lucky, I don't know. But I think that his decisions and his decision making has been much, much better. This is his first year in proper management. Well, okay, sorry, in the Premier League at least. In that side of things, he had the Championship with Leicester last year, I know. But I think that maybe he can learn from some of the mistakes he made midway through the season. And he has changed some things. I don't think it's all the players. I said in a voice note last week, I thought the players maybe were just sort of saying, sod it, we're going to go for it. Sod what the manager's saying. But I think there has to be an element of the mixture of the two. And I think when Maresca loses, he gets caned. And when he wins, it's like, it's all the players. And I think it can't be both ways. You can't say that. The manager's there Monday to Friday working as hard as he is. I just think that he deserves a lot of credit when we do get a good result. But I'd want to see him stay. That would be either way round. I actually would want to see him stay. But I know I'd probably be on an island with that.
Yeah, I think a big factor in this as well is, and we are being a bit negative here, but if it does go that way, then you also have to follow that up with who do you bring in. And there are no obvious candidates out there right now that would go to Chelsea. You go, oh, Xabi Alonso, he's not going to Chelsea. So I think at this current area that we're in as a proposition, we're not in the top market. Whereas if we can get back in the Champions League and be amongst the top table again, then we very, very quickly are able to attract people like that. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Let's continue this very negative thread. Sorry, go on, Joe.
I just said that the players like him, Chris. They do. It's a fact. The players like him. It's obvious. And whether you like it or not, they do. And that relationship can only be built on. I think there is something in whatever he's done to them. People think that he's been hypnotising them, I think, but they do get on. And Madueke came off at the weekend. There's been no moans and groans from him. He understood the situation. Yeah, I think that whether you like it or not, I think Maresca's here to stay at least for another season, at least.
Yeah. Well, I think he's I say everything's on a knife edge. I think the fans will change. I think football's fickle. It's never been more fickle. Fans are fickle. Chelsea are as bad as anyone else. Let's be honest. And I think that if he wins the next 3 games, because it has been so tough. Because now if we get in the Champions League, it'll feel a bit like winning a trophy, won't it? In the fact that you've done it with having to win 5 of your last 6, it will feel almost a bigger achievement than it will for Arsenal, for example. You've got the Champions League, but it's not a big achievement. And I think that if he does that and say does also win the Conference League, I think actually he'll curry a lot of favour from those on the fence. I think it is that big, these 3 games. I'm gonna chuck a negative question at you, and I'm going to give you an answer of my own first. If we don't get there, that you'll look at the reasons being things like what I mentioned earlier, the lack of transfer January business. We weakened probably rather than strengthening compared to like what Villa did, for example. But let's pick a game or a couple of games where you'd look at the end of the season and go, that's the one that's let us down. That's the pivotal one. And I'm going to chuck one at you because I think if we don't get Champions League now, it'll probably be to Villa. And the game I look at is the game at Villa in February, where We actually played really well. 1-0 up after about an hour. Asensio scores, and then in the 89th minute, when we're again on top, Palmer missed a really good chance. Do you remember when he went through?
Yeah.
And Asensio basically scores through Jorgensen, who'd come in, been put in goal for, I think it was maybe his second or third league start, because Sanchez had basically had a couple of nightmares, and he just threw one in, Jorgensen did. And you look at that as a 3-point swing, as it will be, and that would be the reason we don't get the Champions League. So that one for me, in my head, I'm like, that would be the game we'll look at and go, yeah, that hurts.
Well, I think that is a great one. I mean, there are obviously, we've lost games. There are other, we've lost to Ipswich, for example, and then we drew. I think to me, it's probably the Ipswich games. However, I think when it's all said and done, in the 90 whatever it was minute, and I say you drop one through your legs. I forget how the goal went in now, but I remember it being a complete clanger. Is right. The Villa game would be it, because it's going to be the team we're up against. Yeah, I mean, who's to say? We've still got Nottingham Forest to play, but I just believe, Chris, that we have to beat Man United for a start. If we don't beat them, there's something wrong with us, because I've never seen a worse Spurs and Man United are worse than the 3 relegated teams at the stage of the season. They are horrendous to watch. So if we don't beat them, but Forest are poor as well. Forest are really poor. They have lost the plot. So we should win these 2 games, with our eyes shut. Quite frankly, they're not Newcastle away. Forest are really down in the dumps with themselves. And if the chairman for them, by the way, coming on the pitch yesterday and storming the field
incredible
at Nuno, I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's just ridiculous. And they tried to bat it off as, a bit of PR, and I was just a bit disappointed. And it's all fine, and Nuno's great, but behind the scenes, that must be a real mess. A real mess.
It was a hell of a sight, wasn't it? I mean, he looks like a kebab shop owner, doesn't he?
Yeah, he
When he walked on, an angry kebab shop owner coming on and having a go at his manager, but it was not a good look. Yeah, you're right. I think Ipswich is a great shout, actually, because Ipswich isn't just 1 game; it's 2. If you look at those 5 points that you drop to a team like Ipswich, to a team, if you drop 5 points to a team like Ipswich, it's gonna hurt you, isn't it? Right, we will come back for one last part, and we will do the thing that Joe hates doing, which is predictions. After the break. Okay, so Joe, when we first started this podcast at the start of the season, one thing you said was, can we not do predictions? Because I hate predictions and they're crap and they never come true. So we have not really done them all season, but today we will. 3 games to go. Well, let's do 1 game at a time, and we'll go 1 at a time. Man United on Friday night. We're both going to be there. Very much looking forward to it. I'll go first in this one. I'm going to say that we are going to win. I've got a weird feeling for 1-0, which is really nervous.
Well, I was going to say,
I've got a feeling.
I was going to say 2-1. And this is really unconvincing, isn't it? Like, it's really, we're going, basically, we're going to dog one out. I think the lack of a striker is going to cause us a problem. And Palmer's just not, he's playing, like I say, he's not playing badly, but he just cannot score a goal from open play. So I think it's going to be closer than we would want it to be. But I'm going to go for 2-1, and Man United make it quite difficult for us.
Yeah, I've just got the feeling. I was almost wanting to go 3-0 and think it'd be a great night, but
No, I don't think it will.
No, I think it's going to be nervy. Okay, so we win that. Let's assume that Villa do the business against Spurs, which they probably will, and it doesn't really matter too much then about the Forest game. We then go to Forest, last game of the season. If we win, it doesn't matter. We basically have to better the result that Villa get at Old Trafford. You can go first this time. Forest away.
I'm going to surprise you here. I think we're going to learn from Newcastle massively, and I think we're going to win 3-1. I think we're going to batter. I mean, 3-1, not a battering, but I think we're going to win comfortably 3-1. We'll concede, definitely, but I think Forest will be cooked. If we score against them early as well, and with the first minute, like we did, like Newcastle did against us, but if we score early enough, I think their crowd will get down. I think, like you saw the owner, they'll get eggy. I think we're going to win, and we're going to win these last 2 games. Contrary to what all the media think, we're going to get battered by Forest. They've forgotten that Forest haven't won a game for weeks now. So yeah, I think we're going to win 3-1.
Nice. Well, I was going to say 3-1 as well, so I'll just go with you.
Okay, brilliant.
So our podcast, our rules, 3-1. Okay, and that would be both feeling incredibly good going into the big game against Real Betis, who I was looking at I'm now, as you know, obsessed by league tables. So I was looking at the La Liga league table. I was like, they're right up there. They're not a bad side at all, are they?
It's fine,
Real
mate.
Betis. I don't know if you've seen much of them.
I've not.
Have you watched much of them play?
I haven't seen much of them. No, I'd be lying if I said I did. But I know just from what people have said. Obviously, the loan signing of Anthony has been a revelation. He's been unbelievable for them. But yeah, are they 5th? Is that right?
So they're 6th in the league. They're 3 points behind 5th, who are Villarreal. They're probably going to just miss out. I don't know, 3 games to go. So they could still get Champions League themselves. Very similar situation to us, actually.
Okay.
But yeah, if you were playing Atletico Madrid, for example, you'd be like, that's an incredibly tough game. They're only 12 points behind them. So they're really not a bad side. It's going to be a proper game, to be a proper final. Before we do predictions on that one, and we will talk about this obviously nearer the time. In my mind, I'm going full strength in that game. I'm not mucking around at all. Whatever happens in this Champions League, sort of in terms of getting the Champions League, but I might go 1 or 2. I might go, Reece has got a start, for example, and I might go. I might change one of the centre backs. So maybe it's not Chalobah if he's played all the league games. We give somebody like Tosin, for example. But to me, Palmer starts, for example. Let's keep it as simple as that. Are you on a similar vein there before we do our predictions?
I would go stronger than that. I think you go full team, full first team. Sanchez is the first team goalkeeper. He starts. Jorgensen's been playing these games. Sanchez starts for me. I wouldn't mind seeing, worst case scenario, Reece James in centre mid. If you want to keep him there, fine. I'll be right with that. But you play Caicedo, you play Enzo, you play Palmer. I'd play Colwill. I'd play Chalobah. I would literally. You're not playing Mickey Mouse. You're playing that. If we played Betis in the semi-final or Fiorentina, we would not have played Reggie Walsh at 16. Do you know what I mean? No. We knew what we could do against them. It was a white one. So I think we go full strength. And if Maresca loses that final, let's say we do finish 6th. Let's just say we do, and he then goes to the final and loses that, and playing Dewsbury Hall and I don't know Tariq George up front or something. I think he's going to get murdered. So it has to be full strength. And you just say to Dewsbury Hall and everybody else, I'm sorry, but if we're winning the game 2-0 with 15 minutes to go, maybe you bring them on. But I think you've got to start with your strongest team and go for it.
Yeah, bit of a club mentality thing, I think, as well. I think we played Arsenal in a couple of League Cup finals, didn't we? And they would play the kids and stuff. It's not what you do at Chelsea. And
no.
I've never forgiven Avram Grant actually for 2008, because when we played Spurs in the last trophy they won, he didn't go silly. It wasn't a silly, but he still played 3 or 4. So Czech didn't play in goal. Kudachini did.
Yeah.
Ashley Cole didn't play. Wayne Bridge did. The core of the team might have been there, but those 4 or 5, that are the B players, you understand why you do it. But if you don't win the game, you then go, you've not played your best team, and I think there's no excuse for it. Okay, so
it's just very quickly. It's psychology of football. If we send out the message that we've put out a youth team, but a lesser side when you've got players on the bench, Betis will be like, you have got to have a go at these. You go straight at them because they've got Palmer on the bench, they've got Caicedo on the bench. They're going to come on later on. If you're going to go for it, if you're going to get Chelsea, you've got to go for them now, and they'll come at us 100 million miles an hour. So I think you just knock that sort of on the head and say, no, we're going full strength. You can do what you want, but we're going full strength against you. And like you say, they're a proper side. This is a proper final actually. This is going to be a great game. I was just going to give you my prediction there. Do you want to give me my prediction now as I'm talking about it or not?
Yeah, so no, this is good. So they will play on the day that we play, just for a bit of context, on the day that we play Forest, which is only 4 days before the game, they will play Valencia, which could be a really big game for them. As I said,
Okay,
it's actually it's handy for us that they look like they're going for the Champions League places as well, because they will have plenty to play for.
that's good.
I'm gonna go for a 2-1 Chelsea win,
Okay,
and Cole Palmer to score the winner.
well, that would be great. That would be that's a better story than mine. I'll be honest. I've actually got us down as 2-2, and we win on pens.
Oh wow!
I
Wow.
think it could. Betis are right. Betis are probably as good as, to put it in some context, they're probably as good as Newcastle. They're probably as good as, you know, I was going to say like a Brighton start. They're probably quite counter-attack team. I think they're going to go at us. I think we can, if they score against us, you know, being a cup final, I think we're going to get a bit nervous. I think we might make the odd mistake. I think, you know, there's always a chance that we pass one out from the back and let one in like that. We haven't done that for a while, in fairness, although some people said that Sanchez was at fault for the goal at the weekend, and I thought that was complete bollocks. Yeah, I think it could be closer than we think. And actually, if we do win on penalties, it'd be quite fun. But I don't want it to get there. I promise you, I don't want it to get there. Your story's better than my story. But I think it's another final that we've been in. And if we don't win this one, holy fuck. It would be just devastating. We've lost so many at Wembley recently. I couldn't cope. And bear in mind, our name's been on this trophy since the start of the season. I think we would be really, really... I think teams would call us out on it, and it would almost be like a bit embarrassing not to win it, even though Betis are a good side. So, yeah, I hope we win, but I'm going to go for pens.
Yeah, it becomes it's becoming a thing at Wembley already, isn't it? Losing finals, so we cannot afford to lose another one. They've got a lot of players that you know, haven't they? Like they've got, obviously Anthony is the big name at the moment, but they've got Isco, they've got Lo Celso, ex-Spurs guy, they've got
Yeah.
Bellerin, they've got plenty. So we will obviously talk about that nearer the time as well. But yeah, Joe, really enjoyed doing a live conversation. Hope everyone listening in enjoyed it too. Please do get in touch with us at hello@1905 podcast if you'd like us to do more of these, and let us know what you want us to talk about. Joe, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just anyone got any questions? Any questions for us about anything? It could be stadium related. It could be squad building. It could anything you want. We love chewing the fat about all this. We've appreciated all your messages that have been sent in. So yeah, just keep them coming, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Right. Let's hope that we are good at predicting results, because if we are, it's going to be a brilliant end to
We'll
the
be all
season.
right. We'll be okay. Yeah.
We'll take that. Right, up the shells. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be alright.